Welcome, all you free range junkers. It's Carrie Christensen, your host, your pick and pal, and junkyard Jezebel. We're here to talk about long, delightful walks through the flea market, our best tips for repurposing or growing your vintage collection or business, and how we all respect the rust. Hey, everybody. It has been a hot minute since we have released an episode. We've had a little bit of, life going on. We had a baby in our family. Not Rick and I. We are way too old for that shit. But we had a grandchild be born. Our very first grandson, Archer, was born in April. Then our other daughter graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison a couple weeks after that. And then a couple weeks after that, somebody we love very much had a very, very scary, death experience. He had a heart attack and clinically died for a minute. And that's been taking up some of our time. So, life gets in the way of picking sometimes. You do the best you can to run a business and find cool stuff, but you also got to have a life and place value where value belongs. And, we had a lot of wonderful people we do business with that reached out to us through all of those things with either congratulations, well wishes, or prayers. And we really, really appreciate all the network of people that we've come to know over the years in this business that have become like family to us as well. So we thought we better get our butts in gear and get another episode recorded here. So we thought, we'll sit down tonight and we'll talk about the weird and wacky things that have happened to us over the years that have built up that network of people and friends and places and all of that kind of stuff. So we just sat down and kind of made a list of some of the weirder and the wackier and stories some of you that know us may have even heard from us over the years, but we thought let's just kind of start at the beginning. So Rick, do you want to tell the story about the first shop we had that was outside of our house and some of the weirdest thing, I guess, really that happened there?
Yeah, wasn't really necessarily weird inside the shop like some of the other stories we'll cover, but um it was a small little almost postage stamp size shop that I moved into right away when I had moved the business out of the house, and it was on the main street in our city of Alaska. And we had it was a kind of a quiet, quaint little neighborhood downtown area. It was only like a 2 or 3 block downtown area with buildings, and there wasn't much commercial activity anymore. So there was a building that I think at one time had been a commercial property, but they moved it into like an 8 unit apartment building.
I think it was a grocery store or something somebody had said.
Yeah.
But yeah, our community here, you guys, is a suburb of a larger community. So it's actually where our store is and where we live is a town of 15,000 is also very small little old downtown kind of feel.
Yeah, so the downtown area, like I said, it was kind of smallish. So we have our mail carrier at the time, a short little woman named Heidi, was quite the spark plug. Anyway, that's another story in itself. But she kept telling us when she was delivering the mail and picking up all of our packages that we were shipping out daily with the parts business, about this building that across the street that had such a terrible smell coming from it. The mailbox she had to deliver to her right inside the door, and she couldn't even stand putting the mail in the mailboxes. She'd open the door and she'd like have to hold her breath and then reach in and put some in and then step out and do it again.
And we should preface this story by saying the building is owned by a slumlord now. And a lot of the people that were coming out of it, you could see ankle monitors on them. So, having an odd smell coming from the building, not to be too judgy, but it really wasn't that out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it was some characters that were there. Just let's kind of leave it at that. But yeah, there was characters there. Anyway, so I was at work one day and I kind of saw some flashing lights in the window, and I looked across the street and saw some police cars parked across the street in front of this building. And next thing you know, there's a whole crew of people coming down in like full on hazmat suits. Now, mind you, it's about 95 degrees in the shade this day because it was middle of summer, hot and humid in Wisconsin like we usually get, and full crew coming out in hazmat suits. And pretty soon the crew in the hazmat suits were carrying out a body bag, And turns out that must have been what the smell was. I had one of the local investigators that worked for the police department that my girls grew up with. They're his daughters, so I kind of knew him, and so I chatted with him or whatever. And come to find out that the smell was originating from a body that had been the gentleman had committed suicide in an upstairs back apartment about 2 weeks prior to this, and the residents never thought to do anything about it until I think it was the mail lady that actually finally turned it in and then said, something had to be done. So they found it. So not necessarily a weird wacky part of that, but the weird wacky part gets better as the day goes on. So
Yeah, we're in no way thinking that
you
that
know
topic
that's
is
I mean
funny or weird or wacky. That is absolutely sad.
that obviously had issues and felt the need to take his own life, which is never okay. I mean, but in the meantime, so the slumlord that Carrie had been talking about, so I kid you not, they had the body carried down the steps probably 30 to 40 minutes prior to this, and there was a for rent sign that went up on the front door of the building, legitimately 40 to 45 minutes after they had hauled the body up. So I'm like,
No time was wasted.
wow. I mean, nothing like, giving the guy some peace. So anyway,
Mhm.
um, that's kind of, I think that was the rest of that day. The next morning I get there and get to work and I'm thinking, whatever. The for rent sign is down now, mind you, at this point, so which means I'm assuming they've already rented the apartment. I look out, and from the outside window, there must have been like a window up in the back apartment. There was a cleaning company that was literally throwing furniture, clothing, personal effects out an upstairs window, down onto the ground in the parking lot below, and then he had another person down below picking stuff up and putting it in a like a dump trailer, dumpster kind of thing. But the funniest part, so now, and I shouldn't say again, funny, but so, all this in less than 24 hours, they're doing this, and the logo on the truck, I kid you not, said like it never happened. So, so legitimately, a guy committed suicide. They hauled his body out. Less than 45 minutes, the landlord was trying to rent the place. Less than 24 hours, it was re-rented, being cleaned out, and basically like it never happened. So we still kind of tell that story. I was gonna take some pictures that day, and my wife kind of got on me. She's like, "You can't take pictures of that and post on Facebook."
Well, yeah, I mean, it was
But
somebody's life and their
yeah,
effects and
so
everything, but
but that was kind of an oddball, strange happening from the first shop.
well, no, you're missing the funniest part of the entire story. So, about a year ago at our current shop, we had a cleaning guy come in and he's like, yeah, he's a salesman. He's trying to pitch his services for his cleaning company. And he just was driving his own car. So, I didn't know what company it was. And he's talking about how they could clean our rugs or they could do our cleaning of our building or whatever. And he's trying to leave me a business card. And I hate it when salesmen come into the shop because it's just kind of a waste of my time. It's not any fun. We can't afford a cleaning crew. I am the cleaning crew. I am the janitor along with my friend Ruth. But anyway, so he's doing all this stuff to try and get our business. Rick comes down, starts telling the story you just heard. The guy hands me his business card, which has his company's logo on it, and like it never even happened.
That was the company he worked for. so so he got a full on recap of the story and me telling him how I mean, who knows if he worked there at the time because this was probably 15 years prior, but yeah, so that was his company that was basically throwing somebody's shit out a window. So yeah, that was kind of an
Yeah,
interesting twist
yeah,
on the
yeah.
story. So
And at the time, I didn't work with Rick at our shop. I worked at a health system in town, and I was getting, like, hourly updates when that was occurring. I'd get a phone call from him saying, "Now guess what happened? Now guess what happened?" That's kinda how the first, I don't know, 10 plus years of our pickin' journey is I was at my corporate job, and he would call me with all these interesting or fun stories, like the day he was going to a pick in Winona, which is like a half an hour from us, and I didn't love it when he went by himself to places kind of in the middle of nowhere, or, like, we didn't know where he was going.
or as a cold call, you don't know the person, they're just calling you out of
Yeah,
the blue and wanting to meet you somewhere.
and this next story is exactly why. So tell him the muscle story.
Yeah, so, a gentleman called me out of the blue one day about buying pedal cars, so I said, "Yep, we'll buy paddle cars." So he gave me an address to meet him at, and he's like, "Well, you don't know where that is, so just meet me in this one part of town in a parking lot of a restaurant." Okay, so I met him there. He drives me over to this house, which I could have found because the GPS existed at that time, but he evidently didn't want to try that. Anyway, we get to this house, and he's like, "Okay, now you got to be really quiet when we get here because we can't wake any of the people up inside." So I'm thinking, are we stealing these pedal cars? Because we were walking around the backside of this house to a back shed. So I asked him, I'm like, "Are these yours?" "Oh yeah, yeah. It's just my mom that lives there. She gets pretty cranky when we wake her up." So now,
So,
mind you,
yes, this sounds like a Lifetime murder mystery.
yeah, so mind you, this gentleman was probably, I mean, this was maybe 10 years ago. So I'm 56. So I was 46. He was probably 10 years older than me at that time. So he's probably late 50s, worried about waking his mom up. Anyway,
Mm.
not even going down that path.
No offense to those of you who live in your mom's
Yeah,
basement.
but I mean, I don't want to judge. I'm not trying to judge and all, but anyway, so we go out to this shed and we pull out some paddle tractors, paddle cars, and we kind of make a deal, and we drag him out to the front. And Winona is another college town, kind of like the one we live in here in La Crosse. It has two small college campuses there. And where this house was kind of close to one of the campuses. So there are some beefier guys, probably some football players or wrestlers or something like that, walking down the street in their Winona State sweatshirts and t-shirts and stuff like that. And this gentleman looks at me, he's just like, he goes, "I bet I can take them guys." And out of the blue, I'm like, "Okay, I'm not sure why you'd want to, but okay." I mean, I'm thinking, I'm not gonna back you up, dude. So if you start something, I'm out. Anyway, he's like, "No, no, really, I bet I could take them." He goes, "Here," and he flexes his arm. He goes, "Feel my muscles." I'm like, "No, no, thanks. I'm good." "No, no, really, feel my muscles," he says. I'm like, "Nope, gonna pass on that one again." So we proceeded to load the pellet cars. I paid him and I got the hell out of there. So, but that was another one of the kind of the characters. We'll just leave it at that. I've dealt with in the past at different points. He called two or three more times after that to try to get me to come back and look at some more stuff, and I declined every time.
So, Rick escaped murder that time, but after that conversation, Carrie said, maybe you don't go by yourself, or maybe you let me know the address of where we can find your body next time. But that didn't stop him from buying weird stuff from weird people. Why don't you tell him about the murder kitty cars?
Yeah, so this was another one. And the so in addition to pedal cars, I had a gentleman approach me one time. He had some carnival ride cars. Now these are really, really unique ones. They were from the 1940s, really very heavy cast aluminum, modeled after like an old Hudson or kind of car like that style, kind of a boxy style car. Good looking. I think he had two or three of them at the time. And I bought two, if I remember right. He wanted to keep one for himself. But he said, he goes, "Well, there's a strange story behind this. So I don't know if I want to tell you it." I'm like, "Well, I'm really kind of interested in the cars." I said, "I don't think I'll change my mind. So Jim, go ahead and shoot me the story." So, and some of the people that know me, I think I have told this before, but it'll be new for some people. So turns out that these carnival ride cars came out of an estate of a serial killer. Um, and the serial killer, he was down in Missouri or Oklahoma area, if I remember right. This was a while ago now, and I had kind of looked it up to see if it was a legitimate story or not. And I did find some of the information about this gentleman. Um, Anyway, he was a serial killer of adult males, and at one point he started to run out of victims. So he was switching his tactics, and he was going to start. That's what they think anyway. He was going to start trying to go after children. And in doing so, he tried to set up a little home backyard carnival. Now, some of these rides he had set up, it sounds like he had 10 or 12 different carnival rides set up in his property here. These cars came off one of those rides, and we had documentation that the estate that these were bought out of, and I was the person I was getting them from had the documentation from the people that had bought them from of his estate. um, what he had gotten caught in the meantime, he did get caught in this, and I think it was before he'd actually gotten any children, but he did get caught, and they had to sell off his estate to pay off all of the victims, like restitution. So, so these came out of that estate auction when whoever had bought out the estate, and yeah, the guy that I got them from had bought three cars, and I ended up with two of them and resold them. And I kind of did the same thing when I went to sell them. I was, I had some people interested in them. I'm like, well, there's a story behind these. I'm not sure if I should tell you, but so yeah, so that was another one of the, I don't want to say a murder mystery, but we've had some weird, wacky items
Mhm.
come
Everything
through.
yeah,
So
everything we buy has history behind it, but a lot of it's just kind of
yeah,
run of the mill. Every family in the 1950s had one. We hear that when people come into the store all the time. Well, my mom had that, my grandma had that. I mean, probably 20 times a day.
yeah,
Um, but sometimes there's a more interesting story behind how we acquired it or what it was used for. And we don't intend to make fun of the circumstances by any means when people were injured or hurt or died, but some of this shit you just can't make up.
yeah.
So
And I was when the guy was telling me the story, I'm like, "Yeah, right, whatever." Well, I did come in and he showed me the provenance of it, and I did come back and do a little research, and it was dead on balls accurate. I mean, it was spot on with.
Mhm.
Now, it turns out that these pieces had never been set up. There was notations on that. This was one ride that didn't ever get set up, so these cars had never been active on the estate or whatever, but they were part of the estate because they were there and waiting to be assembled. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, but then in addition to stuff, we've had some interesting happenings at our most recent shop, that doesn't necessarily involve stuff, but it does involve some odd behavior. And Carrie's going to cover that.
So Rick really believes in all the ghost stuff and stories and watches all those shows on TV. And I always say, good theatrics, good TV. But the building that we currently have our business in was owned by two different families previous to us and added on to a bunch of times and then turned into a partial commercial building. And when we bought it, the people we bought it from told us that the first family who owned the building, their 7-year-old son had drowned in a pool that was in the yard and died there. And we found footsteps in the concrete and like his name written and stuff when they must have poured concrete in the garage at one point. So we knew the story was true. So we bought the building. We had to spend a couple of weeks renovating it and painting it, and that meant that there was a lot of nights that I was there very late by myself painting, or knocking down walls or whatever the case may be, and Rick was at our old shop still trying to kinda pack things up and wind that building down and just take care of business, and there'd be times I'd be in the lower level, that's our retail store, and I'd hear footsteps upstairs, and it wasn't like a mistaking of footsteps. It was very clear footsteps. Like if you've ever been in our store, you can tell when somebody's walking around upstairs pretty clearly in some of the rooms. And I'd go upstairs and holler, "Rick, is that you?" And no answer. And I'd do a loop through the building and I'd check all the doors and all the doors were locked. And I'd call him and say, "Were you just here? Because I heard footsteps upstairs." And he's like, "No, I'm at the other shop." And I'd check his location on Apple Maps because I'd think he was just trying to screw with me, but no, he legitimately was at the other shop, and at that time, we were the only people who had the access codes to get into the building.
And the shops are made 5 miles away. So I'm a fast driver, but I'm not that fast of a driver where I can mess with her.
Yeah. So that was like weird. And the first couple times I said it, I think he just thought I was being paranoid by being there by myself. But then there was a couple times that he also had a similar experience where he would be downstairs and he'd hear like a door slam and he'd hear footsteps and he'd go upstairs and there was nobody. And same thing, he'd call me and ask if I'd been there. And I'm like, nope, I got no explanation. And then there were a couple times that some things were moved just ever so slightly,
Well,
which,
and the footstep ones, we've had multiple employees that have heard it too. It's not even just us. It's
yeah,
when
we're not just
they
nuts.
when they would come early in the morning to start print shipping labels or whatever, they thought somebody else was there too because they heard it, and
Yeah.
so it's actually multiple people.
Yeah, pretty much everybody who's worked
Yeah.
there actually. And then, there'd be things that were moved, but it was like inventory or toys or different things that we really, you kind of think, well, somebody could have picked it up and moved it and just not even remembered they moved it. So you don't put a lot of weight on that. But at the same time, when we'd ask people like, okay, that was on that table and now it's on this table. Did you move it? Everybody'd say no. And we'd kind of just go, well, okay. Lights would sometimes go on and off, things that you just kind of try to pass off as it could be faulty wiring because there is a lot of stuff in that building that was DIY done without the help of a professional. So we had to replace and fix a lot of stuff. So it really wouldn't surprise me if it was wiring. But there was one time that it was just inexplicable, like, no doubt about it. So we hired a company to come in and wire the building for, Category 5 cable, Cat 5 cable for internet. And they put in a server and router and all these things and had very small, Ethernet cables that were, like, maybe 3, 4 inches that went from one piece of equipment to the other. And everything had worked for, I don't know, couple weeks, and, like, we hadn't had any problems.
Yeah, but it had been working all morning, and all of a sudden, one of the computers downstairs just didn't have any internet.
Yeah,
We had no
so
idea.
we're trying to figure out, like, 'cause it was just one computer. Everything else had internet just fine. So the internet wasn't out. We had power. We couldn't troubleshoot it by ourselves, so we called the people from this company called 5 Star, who have been great to work with, and they came over and checked it out, and Ross, one of the guys, goes back into the server closet, and he goes, "Well, why did you unplug this connection?" And I said, "I haven't touched it. Nobody's been in here. This room has a door code on the lock. Nobody's been in this room. It was locked. I watched you put the door code in when you went into the room."
We have a camera going into the rooms to see that nobody else that even knew the door code had been in the room. So nobody had gone into that room, in or out. The door had not opened. We had a camera viewing it. So
Yeah. And he had been there a couple days before, and he's like, "I know I plugged that in." And I said, "I know you did too, because the computer had been working all morning just fine." And that cable was on the floor. Cat 5 cable doesn't just hop out of an outlet on its own. 2 outlets, mind you,
so
both
we did both.
ends. Yes, and we went back and looked at the cameras, and nobody had been in there. I mean, absolutely no plausible explanation for how that happened. So I've talked to some friends of mine that really do the ghost thing and really believe in all that, and people have said, like, if you just acknowledge the ghost's presence and say, "Okay, stop messing around with stuff. We know you're here," a lot of times that'll be enough to get them to stop. So that's kind of what we do now when anything is amiss, is we just kind of assume it's the 7-year-old boy, because it's always mischief like that. It's never anything harmful. It's never scary. It's just little acts of mischief that a 7-year-old would find funny. So we're always just like, "All right, knock it off. We don't have the patience for this. We get you're trying to play with us. We don't want to play." And then it usually stops for quite a while,
And
usually.
I've had no chance with him. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's responding, but when I think there's stuff going on, I basically just kind of walk around and say, "Look, here's the deal. You can play with any of the toys or anything else that you want in the shop. Just don't mess with my business." So that means don't make the internet not work. Don't make the lights go on and off. Don't scare my employees. Play with all the toys you want. Have fun. Be here. Live here. It's your place too. But so that's how I've handled it.
Which sounds a little nuts to me,
Yeah,
but,
probably is. But
if any of you ghost hunters wanna come and bring all your, like, ghost equipment and check things out, we're all for it. Have at
yeah.
it. Our most recent ghost visit, at least we thought it was a ghost visit, out in our garage areas where we store our eBay merchandise that's on eBay currently. And we had a Disney snow globe that's been out there for, oh god, probably 6 months.
It needed to go off eBay and get dumped off and sold somehow, but we just hadn't gotten around to it.
But not really technically dumped off.
Well,
So it was
yeah.
sitting in the middle of a shelf, nothing around it. We had been out in the garage in the morning. This was just like 2, 3 weeks ago. Had been out in the garage in the morning. Rick went out in the garage, and the snow globe was shattered all over the garage floor. And so we started asking employees, because if you've ever broken a snow globe, or if you know what's in those, it's like mineral oil and water and glitter, and it's just a godforsaken mess.
It's an oil dry, it's a Dawn dishwashing and water. I mean,
Yeah, it's a huge mess. So we kind of went to the employees and said, "Hey, has anybody been out there?" And our employees are responsible adults. Like, if they would have broken it or knocked something over that would have bumped it, they would have cleaned it up, or they would have come to us and said, "Hey, I broke this." And it honestly didn't have that much value. We would have been like, "Okay, no big deal." Well, so we just kind of nobody had been out there. Nobody had, claimed that they had broken it. And we don't have tons and tons of people that work there. We're a very small shop. I think that day there was maybe 5 people in the shop,
five, including us, probably. Yeah.
with the exception of a high school kid that was job shadowing one of our employees. So she was the only common denominator, other than the ghost, that had not fessed up to breaking the snow globe. So we finally kind of deduced that it was actually her and asked her, and she kind of looked right at us and said, nope, it wasn't me. But we actually had her, when we went back and looked on camera, had her going out into that room, and she was the one that had picked up the snow globe, and found out from one of the other employees that she'd actually asked if she could buy it earlier in the day. So yeah, high school kids, they think they're smart, but they're not. so so that was our latest foray into what we thought was the ghost, but nope, just turned out to be an untrustworthy high schooler. So lesson learned about job shadows.
That is, the high schooler is not coming back either.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave it at
Yeah.
that. But
So that's what we've got for you today. Just a couple stories. I'm sure we have more that we'll do in other episodes, but off the top of our tired heads, those were some of the ones that came to mind. We hope you enjoyed listening today. And any last words from you?
no, I don't think so. Just we'll there. I'm sure I'll come up with some more weird and wacky or oddball stories behind some of the stuff we've had. So I've got a really good story that I want to share with you guys about a German wind-up Marklin race car that walked into my store one time. So that'll be another episode. But that's not a weird story, but just it's an amazing story.
It's a cool
Some of the
story.
historical stuff that we've had in. So maybe
Yeah.
we'll do a historical episode sometime of some of the stuff we've had a
Yeah.
chance to purchase.
So keep on listening. We'll have interviews with people coming up in future episodes. We'll have interesting stories. Give us feedback. We are still new to this, and we'd love to hear feedback from you. And please, please, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, to let us know if we suck or if you like it. So
And hopefully it won't be another month before we get any put up. So
yeah,
we'll try to get back into our normal schedule.
yeah, it'd be really nice if life would calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, thanks again for listening. And remember, if you have any friends that think you pick up too much junk on the side of the road, you need better friends.